Hello, everyone. This is Steve Bennett, Senior Director of Competition here at Special Olympics Maryland. Hopefully everyone knows me, but if you don't, I look forward to meeting you in person. And again, welcome to the webinar tonight. This is the Powerlifting Preseason webinar. And the first couple slides here are just, as you were logging on, you saw just to give people an awareness of some fundraising opportunities at the state level and the county level. So these are the two slides. We will send these also out in the slide deck when we get that in the next day or two so that everyone can have that information to pass along as well. As we get ready to start the presentation, just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, so you're more than welcome to take notes, and we encourage that. But know that the slide deck as well as the recording of this webinar will be available to you not only on our coaches resource page, which will show you, but also in a link that I'll email out to everyone as well. Again, my name is Steve Bennett. Mike Sarnowski, our Vice President of Sports, is also here serving as the moderator. What is a moderator? That's an individual who, if you have questions throughout the webinar, in the little dashboard, you can raise your hand to indicate you have a question. We can possibly unmute you and field your question that way, or in the question box, you can type in your question, and Mr. Sarnowski will be monitoring those questions and answering them along the way, or we'll stop at several points throughout the webinar to take additional questions. So again, we'll go ahead and get started at this point.
Okay, and Steve, you should have control of the keyboard and mouse.
Okay, looks like I do. Thank you, Mike. So again, just tonight, as normally, I just want to go over the agenda real quick. So again, welcome to the webinar tonight. We also have Ryan Kelchner joining us tonight. Those of you may have met him at previous competitions when he was serving in the AmeriCorps position, serving in our volunteer services department. He has now been offered and has accepted. We're glad to have him aboard serving as a sports director. Previously, it was Kendall Zetzwitz's position, so Ryan will be joining us, working with powerlifting, moving forward with the fall sports seasons and golf, etc. So he's not officially on board, although he is joining us tonight to just go through the webinar. We'll talk about deadlines, qualifying for the Fall Fest, the events that are offered in powerlifting, coaches training opportunities, some rules, some reminders, and then, as I said, we'll do some question and answers at the end and throughout the webinar. And then we'll give you some forms and paperwork just so you can reference that. Otherwise, we won't spend too much time on that. Hopefully everyone's familiar with those aspects. One thing I do want to recognize is our sports management team for powerlifting. Our sports management team are those individuals who look at the sport and the growth and the development of the sport on a year-round basis. There's obviously a games management team, and those individuals concentrate on the operations of the competition at Fall Sports Fest. So the sports management team, just want to give a shout out to these individuals. Jim Downs, a coach from Montgomery County, Kathy Barrett, coach at Howard County, and recently our Special Olympics Maryland team, powerlifting coach that went out to Seattle for the USA Games. Dan Zottarelli, a coach from Upper Shore. Kenny Long, athlete from Howard County. Kendall is looking to stay involved with us as a volunteer and coming back hopefully to help run the competition at Mount St. Mary's. And as I mentioned, Ryan will be the Special Olympics Maryland sports lead starting somewhat tonight, but officially tomorrow. One thing we always like to remind everyone, hopefully you veteran coaches know this, but if there's any new coaches, or it's a great reminder, that no athlete or volunteer can really participate in any manner whatsoever without their proper certifications, et cetera, in place. More specifically with athletes, that's their medical form. So work with your area leadership. No athlete should be training, participating, competing whatsoever without a current and valid medical form. So your area leadership can work with you to let you have copies of that. And again, we stress that the coaches have copies of those athlete medicals at any training, any practice, any competition, and while you're in transport, if you are transporting athletes from one location to another in case any emergencies arise, you have quick access to that medical, again, in case emergency does exist. So I said work with your leadership, your county and area leadership, have the information. They have access to our GMS database that lets them know who's missing what. We also send reminders in regards to the certifications. But again, this is primarily for the health and safety of the athletes and everyone involved with the Special Olympics organization. So again, just reach out to your area leadership and make sure that you have what you need. And if there's anything that you as a coach needs, they can let you know. And again, most importantly, that all the athletes have their current and valid medicals. The important thing with the medicals is that it may be current, but we also need to make sure that any athlete who is participating or plans to participate at the Fall Sports Festival has those medicals, and they are current and valid through the end of Mount St. Mary's and the Fall Sports Festival. There are a couple that I'm aware of that are currently in place, but expire the beginning of October, the end of September. So again, we have to make sure those athletes have updated medicals to get us through the season. This is a nice graphic visual that Janet Larimore from Howard County put together. This talks about the coaching education pieces. So with general volunteers, it's basically general volunteer orientation and your paperwork to get your application in with your background check, protective behaviors. Then you can see the progression of what's needed in each category. It builds off of that first position there with the general volunteers, goes to sports volunteer. Assistant coaches has the same thing there with the addition again as the concussion course and coaching Special Olympics athletes or coaching unified sports. The head coach has that similar information as well as a sports-specific course. And the advanced course is there more just so that this slide deck and this presentation is complete. The advanced coaches are those individuals who would look to go on to a regional, meaning a regional within the world, or a World Games, potentially USA Games, that type of information. So again, check with your area leadership to make sure that you have the proper certifications in place as a coach. Powerlifting deadlines. So the training registration deadline is when your roster of all your athletes that are training in powerlifting, whether or not they want to compete at the state level. If they're training, we want them in the database and give credit to those programs for all athletes training in the sport. So this is not just athletes. Obviously, we don't have partners in powerlifting at this point, but any coaches, volunteers, whatever, participating in your program, I want to make sure that they're in the GMS database for the training deadline. Anyone that's not in by that August 29th date will not be eligible for state competition. So that's coming up right around the corner. So work with the area leadership and make sure everyone's submitted, that we can get that in place. The next is the September 10th deadline. So that's for missing forms. So if we find or someone wasn't aware that an athlete medical was expiring and they just figured it out, or someone doesn't have their protective behaviors or things of that nature, we want those to be in place. But if there's a slip through the cracks, this is the last date to correct any of that information. So again, that's September 10th. And then the competition registration deadline is the 3rd of October. So that's when you as coaches make sure all your athletes are entered into their powerlifting events with what we think will be their opening attempt and what we think will be their body weight in kilograms. So it's really important that we get all that information so we can plan accordingly and have a good start to the Fall Sports Festival. So the events that are offered, hopefully this is not news to anyone. We have our bench press and our deadlift. Obviously, you can only enter the bench press if you wish, but you can also enter the deadlift and bench press, which automatically enters you into the combination event, and that's that's where they take the total of both the bench and deadlift, and you get an award for both of those single events as well as the combined events. So if you're in the combination event, obviously you have to be entered in both the bench press and deadlift individual events. And as I said, the final score is tabulated with the combination of both the two highest successful lifts in those two disciplines to reach your combo lift and your combo score. If there are three unsuccessful attempts in any of the lifts, especially the deadlift or whatever, or the bench going into the combo, you'll be eliminated from the combination event. So you have to have at least one successful lift in both the bench and deadlift in order to be eligible for the combo event. Qualifying competitions. Mike, if you're available, I'm going to give my voice a rest and let you hit on one or two of these slides.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking some time to join us tonight. So with Special Olympics, one of the things that we've heard repeatedly from our athletes is they want more and higher quality competition throughout the season and such. So one of the things that we've required, depending upon the sport, there's a certain number of competitions that they would need to complete during the season. That's what we're calling qualifying competitions. It varies by sport. For some it's 2, some it's 3, and as we'll see on the next slide, because of the nature of powerlifting, it's only 1. But a qualifying competition should replicate as much as possible what a state championship would be, so that all the rules are in place and the athletes are basically getting all the practice that they'll experience if they do advance to the state championship. And even if they don't advance to the state championship, having gone through that experience of what it's like. So that includes adhering to the rules, as I mentioned, any kind of disqualifications that would be done at any other competition needs to be done there as well. Having certified judges, certified officials, and such, having medical personnel on site. Ideally, want to have, if possible, 3 or more areas or counties. In some cases, though, one of the competitions could be an in-house qualifying event, or what we call that. That's basically where you do it. You have a competition just for your program. But that's certainly not as much fun as having a competition, and not as enjoyable for the athletes as having a competition for athletes from multiple different programs. Work with your area leadership, either your area director or if you have a sport coordinator, if you use that model in your area, to complete a sanction form. If you're hosting a competition, we want that at least 30 days in advance so that we can properly promote things. Anything, if the competition is not done following the rules or with appropriate personnel and such, it could be not counted as a qualifying competition. So again, Steve, you want me to continue here?
Yeah, if you want to take one or two,
Sure.
no, the more next slides.
So again, it needs to meet to qualify for the state tournament. You need to meet for your program and your individual athletes and personnel all those training and registration requirements and deadlines that Steve went through. The coaches need to have all their certification requirements by the specified deadline, including the head coach. And then, of course, as I noted, compete in at least one sanctioned qualifying event for powerlifting. And again, because the reason it's only one for powerlifting is just the nature of the sport and how people train for that. Also at that competition, the athletes will need to compete in all the events that they're going to compete in at the championship. So in order for it to count, as an example, just sticking with powerlifting, having a competition that was only the deadlift would not meet that requirement because the athletes would not be doing the bench press, or vice versa. It would need to include both of those events. As of now, today we have not received any of the forms for events for this season as yet. I don't know if anybody on the phone knows if their county is hosting. There are several counties who typically host events, but I don't know if anybody, if you are hosting an event and you have that information, if you want to, you can raise your hand or type it into the question box, and we'll share it with folks. Of course, we're talking with the area leaders on a regular basis, and we'll share the information on upcoming competitions as that is received. Then also of note here, I don't see anybody typing anything in, so I'm assuming no one who's on the phone with us at this time has that information. That's okay. Again, we'll get that out to you as soon as we have the information from the folks who are going to host it. The pre-competition webinar, which every program needs to participate in, either live or by viewing the recording, is on Wednesday, October 9th. It's very important to participate in that, and I would strongly recommend doing it live, as that's an opportunity to ask questions, get clarification, etc., on any aspect of the competition that you may encounter, and it's an excellent opportunity to find out additional information for your athletes. Steve, do you want to touch on this?
Yeah, I'll take a couple of the next slides, Mike. Thank you. We do have a coaches training scheduled at this time, a live and in-person coaches training, Saturday, August 31st. I know that is on the Labor Day weekend area, but we really, really, really encourage anyone to come up and partake in this. We do have Chip Holquist, who, those of you who attended last year's powerlifting competition at the Fall Sports Festival, he will be coming all the way from Tennessee, working with Kathy Barrett, one of our coaches, to provide this training. Obviously, we don't want to waste his time, but Chip Holquist, not only is certified at the international level, but he has been running the World Games as well as all-comers meets for Special Olympics since 1997, as well as been on the management team for all of the USA Games that have ever existed in the sport of powerlifting. So he has a wealth of knowledge, and he will be returning this year to help run our state championships. So that'll be a great opportunity to ask questions, get feedback, get suggestions, really a wealth of knowledge. So can't emphasize that enough to take advantage of this opportunity. The link there to sign up, just for the registration, it's real quick. You click on that link, type in your name, and good to go. So again, really, really hope that we have a lot of coaches take advantage of this opportunity. The Fall Sports Festival, obviously, that's our state competition. It is October 19th. Hopefully that's not a surprise to anyone either. And it is at Mount St. Mary's University once again, a gracious host, and have been working with us for many, many years. We're glad to be back and glad to be welcomed back to continue to work with their leadership at the university, their student support, and the community support in Emmitsburg. Again, the tentative time, we'll work at 8 to 4, give or take, and we'll get some more specifics as far as powerlifting is concerned regarding the weigh-ins in the morning, and then coaches meetings and right into competition. A reminder, all submissions are to be in kilograms. We will also send out the conversion chart from pounds to kilograms, so that can help you guys and be used as a resource. But that's not just the attempts for the athletes, that's also their body weight. So again, just a reminder, I know that that's been a change we implemented 2 or 3 years ago at least, and hopefully it was a little rough, bumpy road to get going and where we are now, but hopefully we've made that turn and everyone's comfortable with that. Again, we look to have those same or similar officials returning from the U.S. Powerlifting Association and coming back to have a high-class officiated competition for the athletes, which they deserve. So again, like I said, we'll have some more details to come leading up to the competition. The rules, we have Special Olympics International as our governing body of Special Olympics worldwide. We look at the international rules, so that's the IPF, or the International Powerlifting Federation. There's the link to their website, as well as the United States Powerlifting Association, which is our national governing body. So 2 great resources there to use. And if you have any questions in regard to rules, don't hesitate to reach out to myself. and or Ryan when he officially starts in the next couple of days. There again, this is just a reminder. A couple years ago, we requested a rule change to include a 15-pound bar for both the bench and dead lift. That was denied at the international level. However, they did incorporate the use of a 15-kilogram bar. Again, that's for athletes who may have some physical challenges to give them an opportunity to participate with a lower weighted bar. Although it's been denied at the international level, Special Olympics Maryland will still allow the use of the 15-pound bar, for both the events. With that being said, we need to be notified if there's anyone who's in that category leading up to the competition. In all cases, everyone is really encouraged, and we anticipate everyone to use the 15-kilogram bar. But if and when needed, we can go to the 15-pound or the 15-kilogram bar. Otherwise, we'll use the standard bars and standard weights for the competition. Again, with powerlifting, it's a little different with the age limit. For the participants in powerlifting, we're looking at 16 years of age or older to participate in this sport. Chalk's always permitted on the hands. It's powder only. We'll provide that at the competition, and it's only allowed in designated parts of the body. So the officials will go over that as well, and we'll get to more details when we get closer to the competition. On the platform or the stage area, only the athlete and one coach are permitted on the lifting stage at a time. And obviously, the coach, once the athlete's in position, must return to the coach's box and let the officials take over with the instructions. Once the lifters are in place, they have the 1 minute to initiate a lift. And, if there are situations where individuals have, again, physical disabilities, we want that to be made known to us leading up to the competition so we can make note of that for the officials, etc. That can be anything from someone who needs the steps to place their feet on. If there are individuals from a physical standpoint who cannot, from physical limitations, extend fully their arm with the bench press, those are the type of things we need to know to make the officials aware. And I think everyone knows this, but if you're doing a lift on the deadlift and you get up and you just drop it, that's a DQ. Similar with the bench press, you've got to control all the lifts from the first initial push from the athlete all the way to the completion or the racking of the bar. Uniform requirements, pretty simple here. The lifting suits, again, these are spelled out in the rules. Undershirt is required. You have your briefs underneath the lifting suit, foot gear, the socks, and I believe the socks need to come up all the way past the shins. Again, that's for safety reasons. You have your foot gear with the socks. The lifting belt is optional. I know at the higher level competitions, almost every athlete uses a lifting bar at USA Games and World Games. I know some do here in Maryland. Again, make note of the restrictions and the size of those belts. Make sure you have the correct belts there. The wraps around the knees, etc. And we talked about the substances, the baby powder, the chalk, that kind of stuff. So make note of that as well. Code of conduct, this is more of a reference than anything, but we do put these in our slide deck so that all coaches are aware of the code of conduct. I don't anticipate having any issues with any of the coaches. You guys are all great people, and we work well together. So it's just a reminder that you guys are leaders. The athletes, other coaches, volunteers, family members are all watching you as the coach and how you react to situations, how you deal with the stress, how you encourage the athletes, and they take your lead. If you're frustrated or, getting heated with officials or whatever, then they don't know what's necessarily being said, and then that can cause some undue stress to either the athletes, family members, etc. So again, it's just basically respect for all, including officials, all volunteers, fellow competitors, And our main job is to have a positive experience for the athletes, and you guys all well know that. Act professionally, and we're all responsible for our actions. So, we just want to make sure we create the best environment for everyone that's there at the event, and not only at the event, but at training, at practices, at any other competitions. When you're going out to dinner, you're having a celebratory party with Special Olympics. At all times, as a coach, you're that leader, and everyone looks to you on how to act and behave with everybody else. And obviously the health and safety of not only athletes, but if you're a coach with any unified teams or unified sports, the health and safety of the athletes and new partners are paramount. So we want to take all precautions to make sure all safety aspects are in place.
Steve, if you can back up for just a second to the coaches' code of conduct. One additional thing that coaches should be aware, we're sharing here the coaches' code of conduct. There's also a code of conduct for athletes, for unified partners, for family members, and so on. And if you have, hopefully you won't have this situation. Most coaches can coach their entire career without having a problem. But if there is some type of an issue, behavioral issue or otherwise, with anyone involved with your program, consult with your area director in terms of how to address it and if it's appropriate to use the conduct policy for that. The full policy is available on the coach resource page, which Steve will note in just a moment. But that is a tool there for you to utilize in consultation with your area director and your area leaders in handling those kinds of issues within your program. So just want to make sure folks are aware of that. Hopefully, it'll never be an issue for you.
Great. Thank you for addressing that, Mike. I appreciate that. As Mike said, here's some resources for you guys as coaches. Each year we'll put out an event guide for the Fall Sports Festival, and that will be sent out electronically as well as on our resource page. The website's there for the governing bodies, and also, as Mike indicated, our coaches resource page. The first bullet point under that is one that will take you directly to the powerlifting page on Special Olympics Maryland's website for coaches. And then we have our general website listed as well. If you have any problems with these links, you can always just Google Special Olympics Maryland. Go to our website there, and actually that is not our main website. I'll correct that. That's the overall organization's. But you go to our Special Olympics Maryland website, you just click up at the top under Coach. There's a drop-down box that has Resource, Coach Resource. You'll hit on that, and then you'll see over on the left-hand side the different aspects where you can go straight to powerlifting, check out other sports. There's no passwords, no usernames, anything like that. It's open to the public. So while doing that, if you see anything or you see something that's not there that you think would be useful, please let us know. This is something new we've instituted in the last couple months, and it's been really well received in the field. And we are continuing to update that, and we want to make it as useful as possibly can for you as coaches. So, again, we're looking for feedback. Hey, I don't see this on there. I think this would be helpful. Just let us know. We'll update that as we go forward.
Okay. And Steve, just so folks are aware, if you haven't visited that site, the things that you can get there are links to all the different rules. Once this is the session is done and we post it, there'll be a link to the recording of this webinar, as well as these slides. There'll be a link to the event guide for Fall Sports Festival. For each of the competitions that are being offered throughout the season, there'll be links to all that information. During the competition at Fall Sports Festival or very shortly thereafter, the results will be posted there as well. So it's a wealth of information, and as Steve indicated, we're really looking to constantly improve it and make it as useful as possible for you. But that's the kind of things that you could find there on the resource page.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. At this time, just want to pause to see if there are any questions. I know I've checked a little bit. I know Mike's been checking. I haven't seen any to date, which is either a good thing that you guys know everything, or this webinar has been extremely knowledgeable, and we've covered everything we need to. But if there aren't any questions, we've got a few more slides to go through here, but don't ever hesitate to send an email or contact our office if questions come up, you're not sure about whatever. We're here for you, so just let us know and we'll be happy to work with you. With that being said, I don't see any at this time, so we'll just go through some resources as I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Just some registration forms and procedures so that you're aware of it. We talked about the athletes. They have to have their medical in place before they can even practice or train or whatever. And again, it's got to be valid through the end of the season for powerlifting. Again, this just talks about, who are the medical professionals who can fill out the paperwork. And we do check on that. Dottie, who's our registration coordinator, manages all of that and works with the county programs to make sure everything's in place. So as coaches, again, the saying that you should have this on your person when you're doing practices, training, competitions, whatever, just so you're aware, this is what the form looks like for the athlete medical. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. And again, here's an emergency medical care refusal form. If they refuse medical attention, they can use that. Volunteer application. Hopefully all of you have already done this. That's the student minor form there. And then you also have the other one for the adults. One of the other things, along with having the athlete medicals, highly encourage you to have an incident report with you at all times when you're traveling around. The incident report can be anything from an injury to an individual, whether it's a volunteer, an athlete, a coach, whatever. It can also be damage to property. If you're driving a truck and dropping off weights, and you drop a weight and you break a tile floor going into a high school gym, so you've caused damage to that facility. That can be noted in that. So it's injury or loss of property or damage. And this is for insurance purposes. You can submit that straight to your area director. They'll get it to us, and we'll go from there. But again, very important to have, if you have an injury for an athlete or an individual, make sure you have this form filled out before they leave, so that if there's any follow-up information, Special Olympics Maryland has all the information in order to do any follow-up calls or see how people are doing, etc. This is more of a resource as far as who to contact. Again, our powerlifting coaches resource link is there. Right now, I am your go-to person for powerlifting, but that will be changing in probably 2 days or by the first of next week. So when we send this out, we will also include Ryan Kelchner's email address so that you can start communicating with him and be familiar with him and start that process going on. We're really excited to have Ryan join us, again, staying with us. So at this time, I'll do one more check for questions. I don't see any hands raised, and I don't see any questions in the box at this time. This slide says it all. It doesn't say it big and bold and crazy enough, but without you guys as coaches, obviously Special Olympics doesn't happen. We know it's a big time commitment. It's a long season. We know a lot of you serve in other capacities within Special Olympics, if not in a coaching role with other sports. I know there's many coaches at programs who coach 3 to 4 different sports. So that shows your passion, your love for the movement, your love for the athletes and partners. Again, without you guys, there's no point of us having Special Olympics. You are the backbone of the competitions to prepare the athletes so that they can showcase to the community and society that their accomplishments, that they can do anything anybody else can out in the sports world, as well as in other aspects of life. So without you guys, it doesn't happen. And I just can't thank you and commend you enough for your dedication to the athletes and the movement. And again, we thank you for your dedication, and we will have this information up to you and available at the resource page in an email form. So at this time, one last check for questions.
Nope.
And I do not see any. So again, with that, thank you. We also thank you for taking the time to join us tonight to start your season for the fall. And we wish you all the best moving forward, and looking forward to seeing you out in the field and at the Fall Sports Festival. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.